The main priorities of making pizzas is that they need to be done right.
To be precise, try and be accurate, keep the pizzas round as can be.
Making sure the product's round, good, fresh, ready to go for the pizza, the people to eat.
Round. They have to be done neat.
Or not to be too messy and using too much flour.
Try and be neat and tidy the whole time, because the more flour and cornmeal you use, the more we end up having to, I guess, pay to clean it up, and that's where that gets expensive with us. Yeah.
Flour is necessary because you need it to roll out the dough balls into crust. However, if you use too much, it gets really messy, it gets all over the place. You waste the flour. Probably most importantly for us, we have to spend time cleaning the mess. It clogs the condo coolers, the refrigeration units. It's in the air enough as it is. We don't need to add more.
Making sure there's not a ton of flour on the table. Using just the flour needed. So keeping it clean.
And you're being fast.
They need to be done fast.
Fast.
Be one fast.
Fast.
A good roller is fast, efficient, making sure the condos are busy.
Fast, fast, fast.
That's what a good roller does.
Yeah.
You use the cornmeal to make sure that it doesn't stick. The pizza crust does not stick to the meal.
Cornmeal helps the pizza slide off easily into the oven.
When it's not too busy and pizzas are going into the oven right away, you just use a little bit. But if it's a pizza slice or it's going to be a longer wait and the pizzas are going to be on the peel for a while, you want to make sure you use lots of cornmeal. And yeah.
If you're making something in advance, you might put a little more cornmeal on because the dough sucks up the cornmeal.
You gotta make sure that the cornmeal gets all the way to the edge. We don't want it just kind of in the center, kind of around here. You gotta make sure it gets all over the meal.
Alright, so if you have an 8-inch, make sure you only cover it for an 8-inch. If you have a 12-inch, make sure you only use enough cornmeal for a 12-inch. Alright, one thing you don't want to do when you're cornmealing is using your hand. This doesn't work either. That's not evenly spread out. Bad.
Cool. Good dough is soft enough so it's easy to roll, but not sticky like bubble. The stickier it is, then the more flour you have to use, it slows the whole process down. So it needs to be just a right kind of softness.
Whenever you get your dough, you want it to be as wet as it can be without it being soupy. You can tell it's soupy is whenever you pick it up and it just starts dripping out between your fingers almost. If it's too dry, then it's like trying to roll cement. So you want to try and get it as wet as you can without it being soupy.
Yeah, and if it comes out it's not right, it's too hard, too soft, or whatever, send it back and the prepper can fix it. Water, flour, salt, sugar, yeast, and oil.
Pizza dough's got flour, salt, and the tears of children.
Okay, so the sizes of the dough balls. We have our large, which is going to be 25 ounces of dough. We have our medium, which is going to be 14. And you want to make sure you keep all of the ounces consistent every time because you don't want the customers to say, oh, well, last time I was here, my crust was thin. Last time I was here, my crust was too thick. You want to make sure everything is consistent.
There is a certain weight for everything, whether it be a regular crust size 8-inch, 12-inch, 16-inch pizza. We have thick, thin, and regular. They're all written on the scale for a reason. You just follow the scale and every pizza should be the same.
Whenever you're rolling, you need to make sure you have your dough balls the appropriate weight. They're marked off here on the scale for you. And a 12-inch ball is 14 ounces. And it needs to be 14 ounces, much like it's 28 pepperonis on a pizza. It needs to be that amount. Close isn't good enough. It needs to be right on the dot. Okay.
So when I'm making a dough ball, I like to put my hand on the dough and kind of cut around my hand because that gives me about the perfect amount for a 16-inch. Put it on the weighing scale. If you need a little more, pinch off a little more, kind of like you're pinching off a piece of dough to give to the little kids. And now when you're forming it, I usually fold it in to smooth out the top and then just pinch it all together. And just a couple little spins, and then you get a perfect round dough ball. So, in fast mode, Yeah.
Whenever you make a dough ball, go ahead and cut this off as much as you think is right. Try and get it accurate there, but be quick about it. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just fold it over on the ends and throw it down. You got a dough ball ready to go.
Sometimes you're in a really big hurry and there's a lot of people and they want the pizza right now, so you gotta make your dough balls really quickly like this.
Kind of just make a little cap like that. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be filled in like a lot of people get in the habit of doing something like that. Just make a mushroom cap. It's kind of how I think it works.
Alright, so now to roll pizza. I like to make sure I have just a nice thin layer of flour on the table, not too much, not too little, you don't want it to stick. Take the one that's been setting the longest. I kind of like to smush mine out. Some people use the star method, which is this. But I just like to press it out because it gives me a better circle. And then just kind of go at it. Flip it over because you don't have enough flour. Kind of flip it again. And I like to use the back and forth method. And it's okay if it's a little square shape because just a little toss will turn it into a circle. Making sure you have enough cornmeal. And there you have it. I did this in half a second.
Yeah, probably half a second.
No.
Once you learn the basics of how to make it, because you want to make it right, and the most important thing after that is that you got to be fast. You got to be fast in everything you do, not just in rolling pizzas, but in making food in general in a restaurant. The customers are waiting in every regard. You need to always be moving fast. Rolling is not an art, it's a science, and if you do just a bunch of little things and you improve on those little things, it makes a huge difference in how fast the product comes out.
And I did this super fast because people are hungry and they're waiting.
When I roll pizza, I will get a tiny bit of flour that I get from here. Usually you can just get enough on your hands. Pound the ball down. This way you kind of get a head start on rolling it. And then when I roll is I kind of spin the ball. I flatten it without going over the crust. And as we go, the ball kind of spins. Sometimes you might need to add a little bit more flour if it sticks too much. Roll it out just kind of enough to where it needs to be. Sometimes you should throw it in the air to get the flour off of it, but that's not absolutely necessary every time. Ready to put it down, so I put just a tiny bit of cornmeal. You don't need a whole lot, especially when you're busy and you're making pizzas. Sometimes if you're making something in advance, you might put a little more cornmeal on because the dough sucks up the cornmeal. And then when you dock it, you just have to lightly go over it once.
Alright, so how to dock a pizza. Put a little holes in it. Make sure you're not pressing too hard. You don't want to ruin the peels. But also make sure you get enough on there where there's not bubbles in the ovens, and the ovens person has to pop a bunch of bubbles every time they open the oven door. And that's docking.
You don't want to dock too hard because it tears up the peel. It's loud and it's just unnecessary.
It puts holes in it.
So this is a great crust because it has an equal amount of thickness around the whole crust, so it's going to cook evenly all throughout the whole crust. It's docked perfectly where there's not going to be any bubbles anywhere. It has the perfect roundness to it. I like to follow the peel. This round edge on the peel, that's where I want my crust to kind of cut off. And then it's okay if you have the peel showing here, because it's a circle. And then make sure it's kind of touching the handle, and it gives you the perfect shape every time, and it's going to fit in the pizza box when you put it in there. So I'm going to make a 12-inch pizza. I'm going to cut out, and I'm going to use like a big pinch of my hand to do that one, almost like you're giving the kids a piece of dough again. make sure you're fast about it. People are waiting. And then I'm going to put that one off to the side because I already have a 12-inch dough ball that's risen. So I want to use that one. I don't have to put any more flour on the table because I can use the stuff that's around the edges. And then just go ahead and smash it out. Flip it over to get flour on the other side. And then just start rolling. Flip it again. Because you don't want it to stick to the peel like that. If it starts sticking to the rolling table and the rolling pin, give it just a tiny bit more flour. And then it will shrink back up, but all you gotta do is either do this if you don't know how to toss the dough yet, or just give it a little toss. And that'll stretch it out more. Make sure you have a nice amount, only a 12-inch amount of cornmeal on your peel. Lay it on there, dock it gently. And there you have it.
When I roll a 12-inch dough ball, this is what I do. Press it down, smash it down, make it nice and evenly round, flip it over, and roll it out, make it nice and even out the weight. It makes it perfectly round when you even it. You're not going back and forth, you're circulating your motion when you are rolling it out. So it's pretty round, good enough at least. So you take it, kind of brush off the flour, and then you throw, pop down on the peel, dock it, and that's a 12-inch.
Whenever you start rolling, normally you would like your dough ball to actually be a little risen. This hasn't yet, but that's fine. You just start by grabbing some flour here, as little as you need, and just smashing it down. Make sure you get both sides on it or else it'll stick to the table. And you just take your rolling pin, and the way that I like to do it is just to kind of roll it around in a circle here. Every time it sticks, it means it just needs a little bit more flour. And then you just kind of roll it around in a circle. Once you get that a nice length, you can make it a little more of a circle by going over it that way. And then stretch out your hands and then toss it. Alright, once you get the appropriate size, grab your peel and your cornmeal shaker, cover the surface area that you need for it. And just put your pizza right there on it, make sure it's the right size. If it's too big, you kind of shrink it up with your fingers a little there. And then grab your docker and just roll over it like so. If it starts shrinking on you again, just take your fingers and kind of stretch it out a little.
Take note of the wood burnings on here. This is perfect for an 8-inch. That's how big you want your 8-inch to be. This is how big you want your 12-inch to be. And this is how big you want your 16-inch to be.
Alright, so see how this crust, you can just see the burn marks around the crust here? That's the way you want it because the burn marks are just a little bit larger than the actual 12-inch pizza. It's more like 12 and a half. So just slightly inside the burn marks there, and that's the perfect crust for a 12-inch. That's the 8-inch burn mark. You want to do the same thing.
If you look at this crust right here, you can see it's about exactly 12 inches in diameter. You can barely see the ring going around. It's not a perfect circle, but it's really close. We're not a cookie cutter operation, so they're never going to be perfectly round because we hand roll them each time.
As far as sizing goes, the 16-inch goes right around the edge of the peel. And we have these burn marks that we've made. This is for the 12-inch, it's just a little bit more than what a 12-inch is. And this is for the 8-inch, it's a little bit more than the 8-inch. So when you put it down, you want to be able to see little edges of those burn marks. If you don't see those marks, then you've made it too big.
Sometimes you will have a tear in the pizza like this. So what you do is you pinch it back together, smash it down, redock it, good as new.
Sometimes you might get a little hole in the crust if it's a little too thin, maybe down in the center, kind of something like that. But you do, and it's real small enough that it's not too big of an inconvenience. You can just patch it up, and you're good to go.
a good roller is really fast and efficient, and sometimes they're just too fast and efficient, and the condours get a little bit behind because you're just there working at it, and you have a bunch of crusts that don't have sauce on them. Get in there, help the condours sauce all the pizza. Hey you, right there. Hey, yeah, yes you. You go fast, and you help the condours. Get it done. Don't use a lot of flour. Go fast. So a big part of families coming to Shakespeare's is the moms and the dads and the whole family. They just love seeing their kids get dough. So don't hog the dough. Don't not pay attention to the kids. Just hurry, cut a few pieces off. What do you don't even have to look at them. Just toss it back to them. That's all you gotta do. And kids love it.
Just a small dough ball for the kids. It doesn't need to be too big. You don't even need to make it into a dough ball. You can just make it into a little clump.
Handing out dough balls to the kids is a big part of our program here. Being a roller can be very stressful, especially when it's really busy, but it's important to be polite and to hand out the dough balls to those kids. Some kids can be a little nagging, but they're kids. That's just the way they are. So when they ask for them, you like to cut up just a little bit. Sometimes I take like a line of it. There's a bunch of kids. There's 5 of them, and I can just cut real quick, throw it to them. Think of it as an investment in the future of the company. Those kids are having a good time. The more of a good time they have, the more likely they'll come back.
Don't be a dough Nazi. Just when you're rolling it out, make sure you're making all the edges of the crust nice and the same thickness all the way around.
It's all about being fast.
And make sure you're fast. Fast, fast, fast. So when you're rolling without dough balls, people call it you're rolling naked. You don't have nothing to put on.
Perfect. Okay. All right, now we're gonna do